Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to another episode of How to Rock Astrology. Today, my friends, I am going to advise you to beware of astrologers who take advantage of your hurting heart. So we can see inside here we have a black magic specialist who specializes in Vedic astrology. To be fair, I don't know the actual person where this comes from. It was just, I happened to have found it online. For all I know, they're more legit than the experience that I had. But I had a crazy experience with somebody who claimed to be a Vedic astrologer in Toronto, close to Toronto, where I live. And I had a wild, crazy, bad experience with it. And that's why I'm sharing this little story with you guys today. I hope you guys enjoy. My name's Dustin Cormier. Welcome. So, where does this story begin? Around 2017, I'm going to give you a little personal jazz just so you can get some context, and then I'm just going to roll with the story. I was having a really hard time in 2017. This is before I went to Peru and did ayahuasca and some fun things. I was in my sati, if that means anything to anybody in the Vedic troop. Saturn was conjunct my moon around this time. I was also going through a Venus-Saturn dasha. Venus Mahadasha, Saturn dasha. Amongst many things. So it was a tough time for me. Jupiter was also in Scorpio, the 12th from my moon. So I was in a very mystical place. And I was, for astrological as well as personal reasons, I was having a really hard go of life. Kind of like suicidal at the time. Everybody has these moments. I wouldn't really commit suicide, at least I don't think, but there are some times when I feel like I'm there. I was in a very emotionally hurt time, and this video speaks to people who have emotional pains, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, pains, evolutionary, transformative pains, at any point in your life. Because it's in these moments that we're very susceptible to intuitive, psychic attack, and not even just attack, but like mouse traps, which is kind of more like what I had going on here. So in this emotionally turbulent state, even though I was very emotionally messed up in a lot of ways, not because anything traumatizing happened to me, but just it was more of a Saturn thing. I was deeply depressed with the way my life was going, deeply lacking love and an affectionate love, romantic love, and I felt just like a turd because I couldn't make that happen. And it was in this state, I was still in a very mystical state, and I'm always getting into astrology. I was just getting into Vedic astrology at this time. Because I had heard from a lot of people that Vedic astrology was something that I should be interested in. So, I talked with some people at a Kundalini conference about Vedic astrology, and I heard that my signs were all different in Vedic astrology. Of course, we know in today's time that just because you practice Vedic philosophy in regards to interpreting a horoscope doesn't mean that you have to go by sidereal zodiac. Sidereal meaning of the stars. I am a tropical Vedic astrologer, which means I do Vedic astrology, but it's through the Western measurements. I'm born in November 8th, and I'm a Scorpio in the Western horoscope. And when I first... That's my tropical sign. I'm a Vedic astrologer, and I still go by that November 8th being 16 degrees of Scorpio. Whenever you go to a Vedic astrologer who doesn't really is not grounded in their practice, they won't be able to speak to the differences between sidereal zodiac and tropical. if they are a good astrologer and they practice sidereal astrology, they will at least know the difference between the two. They will have scientifically, if you are a sidereal astrologer, if you've practiced it for a long time and it seems to work for you, rock and roll. Because you've done the scientific analysis of both sides and found that the traditional sidereal astrology is better. Now, I was just getting into Vedic astrology, and I didn't know the difference between these two. If you're following me, Vedic astrology was new to me, and I looked up my chart. It said that I was a Libra instead of a Scorpio, and it was a whole new world to me. So I needed to know what it was about, and I wanted to visit a Vedic astrologer to see if they could give me more insight into this other side of my chart. Part of me was wanting to just see what Vedic astrology had to offer, and part of me was actually looking for healing. So, being the scientist that I am, I wanted to go find an astrologer, just speak to them and see what they can say to my condition. And so, I live close to Toronto, Canada. I looked up an astrologer, a Vedic astrologer, who was living in a sketchy basement in Scarborough, close to Toronto, like I said. It's a suburb of Toronto. Went there with my car, had my own notes, my own sense of my own chart. I looked up my Vedic chart. I had called him and emailed him my chart. So he knew, even though in my conception, the Vedic sidereal astrology it's different. It's a different way of measuring. But there's things that are the same, like my Sun and my Mars were still conjunct. I still had Ketu in Rahu, a certain place from the moon. These are all things that the astrologer saw and knew, so he did know a lot about me already. So, here I go to meet this astrologer. His name in his ad was Maharaj, a very ubiquitous or a common name. Maha means great, as we know from like Mahatma Gandhi, the great soul, Mahatma. Maha means great. Raj just means like the sun, solar Surya energy. So Maharaj is like the great sun. It's a little bit conspicuous, right? But, someone who has that title in India, if they're given that title, could be a good thing. I could be a real guru vibe. I didn't know. So I go to meet this Maharaj character. I went into a seedy-looking basement in Scarborough, a suburb of Toronto. Went into the basement, and he met me kind of in the little bottom foyer of this place and said, "Hello, are you Dustin?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Great, come in. He's very Indian. He was a very strong-looking guy. He was actually built strongly, like a warrior. He reminded me of like the Kshatriya caste. He reminded me of the sun vibe. So, I kind of felt like the Maharaj thing was interesting and fitting. Although it did seem to me like he was a bit pushy, kind of like sketchy. This is the vibe that I got from the whole time from this guy. But I just felt like, what's the worst that he's going to do? I've got this string of emails connecting to the guy in this place. And if he just wanted to, like, murder me or something right there, and I'm not, my mom is very close to me. The first day, I lived with my mom at the time. The first day that I disappeared, she'd be, like, finding out what I'm about. She'd check my email. She'd find out what's going on. And, like, I don't know. Point is that I didn't feel that sketchy being in this guy's basement. I did, but it was sketchy. For whatever reason, I just felt an odd energy about it because the guy was so pushy and Eric, come in. But I did it, being the scientist that I am. I wanted to go through with this experience. I thought maybe this is just the Indian guru coming through this guy. So, come in, come in, come in. I sit down in front of this dude, Maharaj, and he's got a table with a nice cloth on it, and all around are pictures of deities, Vedic deities, Shiva, Vishnu, Lakshmi. So we sat down. He had already had some little piece of paper kind of prepared about me, about my chart. He was kind of perusing it a little bit, just kind of asking about the exact, precise birth date of my birth date. And I said, yep, it's this time. Good, 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 good. And he's like, okay, great. Okay, so this is the chart. This is the correct chart. So he gets these. First thing he does is I think he said that he drew a prajna chart. Sorry, black. That's not quite right. But like I believe what he described is some kind of prajna in the moment divining, where he rolled what appeared to be like 6 or 7 of these little shells. They looked like oyster shells, and they looked like little vaginas. If I could find a picture of these, I would show you. It's like it looks like a little female genitalia in a little cone, and he rolled 6 of them, and he saw that like 4. It's much easier for these things to fall on the spherical part of this shell. So I got like 2 of them were face down out of 6, and he goes, writes something down. And so I'm like, what's this all about? And he's like, oh, it's this is something we do. Just take my word for it. You got 2 out of 6 down. Has to do with luck, and has to do with knowing about this moment in this reading. And I was like, okay. It seemed to me like a little bit of a weird, some kind of weird Jedi mind sort of like thing. I digress. I was like, okay, cool. So, right on. So, he sits with me and he's like, well, so, what would you like to know? And so I kind of just started babbling. At the time, I just started to here's my life. Here's where I'm at. I wanted to talk to somebody about astrology. I've been practicing my own astrology. Everything I just said to you, I told him, right? Been doing my own tropical Western astrology. I'm just getting into the Vedic. I know it's ancient. I have a deep respect for India and Hinduism, and that's why I came to see you. I know a lot about it. I was trying to convince this guy that I'm spiritual too, man. Believe me. Something I always try to do. So I tried to just get on this guy's level, or show that I could appreciate some depth of spiritual wisdom about me specifically, whatever this guy could fish out. And the guy, so he started to try and work out what he saw in my chart. He's like, okay, well, it seems to me that you've got a strong drive, got very strong passions, got very creative, strong creative passions. And I said, yep, totally, man. And he said, you got a very strong passion, and when this passion is thwarted, you get frustrated. Bingo, bud, looking great. Like, this is awesome. Yeah, keep it going, man. I'm interested. I think he was speaking to my Sun conjunct Mars. There's lots of things he could have been speaking to. In my sidereal chart, I'm a Cancer rising with Saturn in Capricorn. That's Saturn in the 7th in its own sign. So there's a great Saturn there. So he's telling me, like, you are good, you're responsible, you work very hard. You work very hard at what you do. Probably harder than you need to. Already he's kind of pulling on my heartstrings, and I'm like, yes, man, yes, keep telling me these great things. I need to hear this. I need to just know myself in context. And he's going along, he's reeling me in, fishing me into his descriptions of my astrology chart. And at some point, he starts kind of looking at me like this. And he says, is there anything troubling you? And I said, well, part of the reason I came here is because I'm looking for self-realization and just a bit of context of where I'm at in my life right now. And he says, you know, when you first walked in, I could tell that you look very happy on the outside. You look like you are really trying to show that you're confident and that you're wise. But I feel like something is bothering you on the inside. And I was like, ooh. Okay, all right, cool. So what's that all about, man? That's cool. I feel that way. I would love for you to continue and tell me what's wrong with me. Please tell me what's wrong with me. I wish I could just find some kind of button that I could press and make this suicidal depression I'm experiencing go away. If you could just tell me about it, that would be great. That was the vibe I put out anyway, you know, just like, yeah, something I am feeling deeply like unhappy and kind of depressed. And so he goes, it seems to me that you are unhappy. And it also seems to me that there are people in your life who are jealous of you. And I said, okay, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm a Leo rising, so I was kind of like, duh. Serious face. He says, you know, there are people in your life who are jealous of you, and like maybe he knew that I've got, like, he thought I was a Cancer rising, but even a Cancer rising's ego can be placated to. And so I'm just kind of, well, you know, like, you're not wrong. I mean, what can I say? I'm kind of like cool or whatever. I got lots of things going on, and I'm kind of like something amazing, so I'm not surprised about that. Don't take me too seriously here, folks. I'm just, you know, this is what I told the guy was like, yeah, I feel like I've got a very special life. I feel confident. I've had a good upbringing. My childhood was good, so it's possible that I have things that other people don't, and that other people might envy that. And he says, so I don't know, I was buttering myself up more than anything. And so he says, yes, there are definitely people who feel envious of what you have. And then he came right out and he said, there are people obstructing your path. There are people blocking you in your life. And I said, and I was trying to think, like, you know, like, is it I'm a musician, is it other people in other bands? Is it people in my band? Is it people in my family? What the hell is he talking about? But I was suspecting that he was right, just because it seems like maybe that's what's going on with me, is that, but I didn't jive with it exactly. And so I was like, okay, can you tell me who? Is there anyone in my job? And he says, not really in your job. Not really in the things you're doing. And he said, it's people in your family. And I was like, what? Fuck that, really? And then I was trying to think, is there anybody in my family who might be weirdly fucking with me in some way? You know, I've got some really heavy Christian-y people in my family that probably don't agree with everything that I do, but I don't think that they're that full of spiteful revenge. And he says, you know, there's people in your family and people very close to you who are actually looking to poison you. And I thought, like, can you specifically give me anything with your intuition? Can you tell me who you're talking about? And then he said, it seems that there are people in your karma, in your past lives, in your present life who are manifesting now, who are taking advantage of you and drawing life energy from you from far away. And there's nothing you can do about it. Unless you want some help. And I was like, okay, it's a little weird. And I was just like completely taken aback by this. And he says, yes, you have black magic on you. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was taking it seriously at this point because I couldn't see anyone in my personal reality doing this, but I could see it being possible that maybe my life is just going through in some weird path because I doubted it because I felt good about my karma, about who I was. I've never really done anything bad to anyone that I could feel, and I didn't believe them. But I was very worried and nervous that, like, maybe this dude is right, and, like, how the hell do I know? And so he says, you have black magic on you. You've had people for a long time in your past lives and in this life trying to sap your energy. And you can't meet them. They're parasites. Kind of describe them as like psychic parasites that feed off of your glowing energy. This radiant sun energy that you are, this glowing, he didn't say sun because he said this glowing energy that you have. People want to take advantage of it, and you work and work and work, and you waste your life energy, and you're very tired, and it's because of this parasites on you, this black magic parasites. And at this point, because he connected all that, I was a little freaked out, and I said, okay, so what would you recommend for this sort of thing? I wouldn't mind seeing you for another session and thinking and discussing how we can get through to talking, to finding these people, to what's going on. And he says, no, this you can't do that because they're like like a Medusa's head is kind of like it's the way he was trying to describe it to me is that he wouldn't use Medusa, that's more Greek than Indian, but he's like, you have people who are spread far and wide in your ancestry and in your karma who want to drag you down. And then he gave me this, Mr. Tough Maharaj. He looks at me like a tiger, and he says, now if you want, I can give you a really good deal because this is something that I've been doing for quite some time, this Indian accent. I'm very good at this. You can trust me. What I do is I have my friends and priests, and I have very special white magic people in India to whom you can give some money to, and they will pray for you. And I will have all of my people praying for you. You will be held in the palm of our hands of a white magic network. I will give you weekly a mantra to say over and over again relating specifically to your illness. And if you say the mantra, and if you really work hard on it, and you memorize and you memorize and you memorize, you will be able to work until you build yourself a powerful aura protecting mantra just for you, made specifically for your chart. And so I was like, okay, that sounds like interesting, because I was into the occult already. I was into the idea that mantras were powerful. I could vibe with what he was saying. It's like, you have to have this power from within when there's psychic vampires just coming to get you. So I was like, okay, makes sense. And I'm like, so how much would it be for you to get me these mantras? And he says, well, my friend, I can tell you that it takes a lot of energy. I'm going to take a lot of time to specifically make a mantra specifically for you. I already know what I'm going to get you. I already know what I'm going to do for you. And it's going to take you about a month, and it might take you even longer. It might stretch out into 6 months. But all this time, throughout all this period, for the first month, you'll pay me $1,000. And then as the months progress, maybe I'll give you a good deal, and maybe we could do $2,000 for the next 4 months. Legit numbers, ladies and gentlemen, legit numbers. This guy starts telling me that I got to pay him $1,000 for like these meditative mantras to protect me from this black magic. That I've got to call this dude. He's going to give me some mantras. He's going to make me repeat them over and over again. I'm going to repeat them for a month. And then for another $2,000, I'm going to work for 5 months under this guy's thumb, under this guy's psychic thumb, in order to just keep doing these mantras over and over and to make me think that I'm getting healed. And at this point, he was being very pushy about it, very business and like a mercantile warrior business. He says, this is the only way to do this. This is the only way to do this kind of thing. When you have black magic, you have to protect within yourself and blah, 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 blah. And I said, I don't know. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me know about this, but I don't know if this is really something that I can do. I don't have the money for this or the time, and it just seems impossible. And he said, oh, no time like now. No time like now is what he said, right? You know, you'll never get this. Anything you try to do in your life, you will not. And sometimes he was very frustrating. Like, you will not get away from this black magic unless you do it right now. And I said, could you give me some time to think about this? Because at this point, you guys must be thinking, Dustin, how could you fall for something like this? How could you even think, even remotely, that this was a real thing, or that this guy wasn't just ripping you off? And so, basically, because of the emotionality of the time I was in, plus my mom had just, sold her house. And she had money for me to spend on things that I wanted to, and I wanted to use them for spiritual healing. I decided to do an Akashic record reader, and then I went to Peru, and that cost on my mom's dime because she was living in my house that I owned. Long story short, I had the money to burn on this $1,000, and some deep thing inside of me, the vulnerable part of myself, just thought, maybe I can just give this guy $1,000. He'll give me the mantra. I'll just say it in loops over in my head, and I won't have to work hard on the things that are draining my energy, draining my spirit. Because, of course, I was in a Saturn Rahu period that was just depressing me deeply. And I thought, maybe it's just this mystical thing. So I said, well, Maharaj, I basically told him, I really appreciate you telling me this, but I can't do this for you right now. And I said, do you mind if I call you tomorrow after I think about this, and maybe I'll come for another session? And I probably will. That's what I told him. I probably will do this. I probably will do this black magic because I'm sick of living in pain and suffering. And he says, okay, very good. Come tomorrow. Or talk to me tomorrow, email me, whatever. And so I gave him the $60 and said, I'm going to give you this because I want to be in your good books. And he says, oh, you're into good books, man. You're into good books. Takes the $60 and he says, now go. I have to have another customer coming in soon. He's pushing me out the door at this point because I had kind of told him that I didn't want to do it right then and there and now. I was trying to actually talk with them with compassion about my chart. And this is the frustrating thing, is that I knew that a real astrologer would I would pay him a real amount of money, not just $60, and he would be a psychologist, a counselor, who would tell me about the figures. He wouldn't just try to convince me of his intelligence and his intuition and his insight, and then go on this whole spiel about $1,000 friggin' dollars for all these things. I knew that a real astrologer wouldn't do that. A real astrologer would be a counselor who tries to get me through the things myself, from within myself. Tell me the meaning of my struggles. These are all the things I was thinking. And this guy's pushing me out the door after I say no to his $1,000 request for this thing. It's very weird, very pushy. Gave him the $60 and I said, I will really think about it, sir. Thank you for your time. I walked out of the place, onto the main street, going down Scarborough Lane or whatever it is there. I think it's Kingston Road on the way to Toronto. And I was distraught. It was raining. I had my car. And I was just really frustrated. Because, damn it. This has got to be bogus. What if this guy's right? So, I looked up online. And I thought, I got to do more research. Before I give this guy my savings, I honestly wanted to. I wanted to believe that it could be true. So I go on my phone, I go on Google, I look up another Vedic astrologer. A similar area, and I just wanted to, before it got too late in the day, it was 4 p.m. and it's raining and moody. I'm just going to try and see if I can just contact another astrologer and get this figured out. I contacted another astrologer, and I called him, got him on the phone, and he said, hello. And I said, hey there, I'm looking for an astrologer. I just need somebody to talk to me about some things, especially some things I've heard. I would love to talk with you about it. And he says, okay, man, okay. Send me your birth details, place, time, all the things. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. And I said, do you think you'll be able to do it like at some point tonight? And he said, I'll do it soon. I'll do it 2 hours or so. And I said, are you, in those 2 hours, should we make an appointment once you get through to me? And he said, no, we'll probably just do it over the phone. And I thought, great, okay, what the hell? It's not going to be the same thing, but all right, let's do it. The guy's like, great, I'll talk to you as soon as I can. So I waited in Scarborough, quite a little ways from my home, but I thought maybe that this guy was located in Scarborough. I thought I was going to have to go and see him. I was hoping I could go see him so I could see, like, is this guy going to be sketchy or whatever. Lo and behold, 3 hours later, I was just meditating and writing my notebook and just like, how can this be? And doing what I often do in my life, just trying to think of my pains in my life and self-realization, contemplation. Why do I feel unhappy? Especially after what this guy said, Maharaj. I was thinking, like, who in the hell could this be? Who in my family or close to me? What the hell? This other astrologer calls. Vikram, something like this, somebody with a name that's a very Indian name. Not like Maharaj, but something Indian. Calls me and he says, hello, so do you have the time to do this reading session? And I said, sure. Do I have to pay you any money beforehand? And he says, no, we can just talk over the phone right now. And after we're done, we'll see about what you might want to pay me. And I was like, okay, sure, right on. If you're going to do it for me for free, let's see where we can go with it. And then so I started talking with him about, like, I'm thinking this about my chart, like I'm new to Vedic astrology, and I used to be a Western, I used to be a Scorpio, now I'm a Libra, whatever the hell that's about. And he's just like, okay. He says, no, you're a Libra. You're definitely a Libra, because he's sidereal, right? He says that I'm a Cancer rising because he was into the sidereal. And so he says, he's checking all my birth info, seeing if it's correct. And so he's reading through, and he says very similar things to what Maharaj said right off the bat. He says, so I can tell you're a very strong worker. I believe maybe you're calling because you've been in a period of much pain. And I said, yes, definitely. And he says, you've been working very hard, and how hard you're working is not coming back to you. You feel like you're being taken advantage of. And I was like, oh, yes. Yeah, okay, yes. You've got it, okay? Please go on. I do feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Or that I'm doing the wrong thing in my life. And I didn't expect him to go to this place, and he tells me on the phone, after all this, he says, yes, you have black magic on you. Wait a minute. Could you say that again? You have black magic on you, sir. There are people in your life who are trying to be parasites to you, who are trying to take your energy from afar. And I was like, like, are these two in on it? It was like ringing like a bell in my head. Does this guy know Maharaj? Are these guys partners in this thing? Or are they both right? If this guy's a real astrologer who I've called is telling me this in this emotional state, telling me in these vulnerable things, and I haven't even paid him a dime yet. And so he says, and I said, okay, so how do I fix this? And he says, well, if you want to call me, we can exchange emails. I can call somebody, and I can have a removal of black magic from you. And it's going to cost a little bit of money. But I can pray for you, I'll give you mantras, and you will be able to remove this black magic. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. At this point, I was like, oh, thank God, these assholes are pulling my friggin' leg. Bastards. Like, and I felt that, and there was even a small piece of me that was like, I was just so hoping that these guys, like, what the hell is this? You know, is just like India just in on this weird conspiracy where they send people to the America to prey on them with their heart, with this like bad, gross sort of energy. This is not an attack on India. This is, unfortunately, these two Vedic astrologers just painted a god-awful picture of the possible pratfalls of astrology. They happen to be Vedic astrologers, but I'm sure that this can happen in the Western world, in Western astrology as well. Especially if there's no system, there's no standardization for what makes a Vedic astrologer a true Vedic astrologer. So this guy tells me I got all this black magic on me, and I said, great, thank you so much, I appreciate it, and I got his email. Let me call you just after I think about this further, and maybe we'll do this thing, this black magic thing. He said, okay, great, I'm always in touch, give me a call. Click, hang up the phone. I looked up remove black magic astrology scam in Toronto right then and there on my phone. And Google, the first search that came up on Google was the Toronto Police Department saying, if you find anybody who's looking online for susceptible people, emotionally vulnerable people, who are looking to have black magic removed, tell the Toronto Police Department about it. Because these people are scammers, and they have scammed people out of thousands of dollars already. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is a crazy place. In that moment, I was in such a crazy, mystical openness to someone else's psychic guidance. I was so hoping that the confidence and strength of Maharaj and this other guy were legitimate guru energy, just the mystical veil of India, that I was just so ready to hand money to Maharaj, this butthole, who had this incredible grasp over the susceptible part of my brain. Although, like, you know, I'm Scorpio Sun with Scorpio Mars. I sniffed the whole time. I was just skeptical down to the bottom, thinking, like, I'm feeling all these things and so mad and so frustrated, but, like, I've got, like, Saturn in Aquarius. I've got a real scientific bent, and I thought that, like, I gotta research this more before I give this guy my money. I was skeptical the whole time, and it's a good thing that I was. It's a good thing I went through that experience, tried it. You know, like, I do recommend people to try, like, to experiment with your sense of your astrologers. Any astrologer you get, don't just take their word for what they tell you. Experiment with different astrologers, and don't ever let a snake oil salesman take advantage of your hurting, vulnerable heart. As we have described in this picture, I just lost it anyway. The world's a crazy place. Astrology and mysticism are a crazy place. And I could have deeply gotten taken advantage of in this moment. And there are people who also get taken advantage of from people like I've described. The lesson to take from this, ladies and gentlemen, is, again, don't let people take advantage of your vulnerability and when you are vulnerable. Experiment scientifically when you are in an emotionally vulnerable state. It's not bad to go and try different astrologers. You can find a Vedic astrologer in your area who is legit, and you should, because I'm a Vedic astrologer. I recommend it, but just keep this story in mind. I hope this story has helped some people just get a good sense of the pratfalls that can come from giving your astral energy and hopes and intuitions and dreams to somebody who is convincing and who knows how to wrench money out of you purely for material gains. And also, even with your own astrologers. You know, sometimes it often happens with astrology that you find a teacher online on YouTube who's doing the thing, trying to get their things, and it's just a monetary part of astrology where your time is, they put in the time to learn your chart, and they charge like $200 because that's what everyone else is charging, and they might see that you've got a vulnerable heart and just keep you on this sort of mouse cheese donkey in front of the carrot, or carrot in front of the donkey sort of emotional vulnerability wheel, and they don't really tell you anything. They just tell you what's wrong with you, possibly some of the things that are wrong with you, without really giving you any guidance in the true sense. I digress because I'm an astrologer, and it's hard to get on your feet, especially when you're like a 29-year-old young man who's hardly even lived enough life to have the wisdom or authority to tell anyone how to live their lives. But where else do you start? This is me being very open right now, shooting myself in the foot, I guess, in a certain way. If you see me as an astrologer, you've just got to take the schooling that I've done with my teacher, Ryan Kirksack, and with all the other schooling I've done, read it from your intuition about what I say, through my own intuition. But if you would take me as an astrologer, I really hope that you also try other astrologers. Because it's the nature of other people tapping into your unconscious and telling you what they think. Everyone has a different filter for your light. So always be open to different interpretations. Astrology is an expensive thing for good reason, because it takes so much time, it takes so much education. People dedicate their lives to it. And it's so endlessly different and variegated that you're going to have to pay a real astrologer who's reputable $200, get their perspective on your chart, your problems, and then pay another $200 for an hour or whatever else for another astrologer who has a different sense of it, ask the same questions, see how the results differ, and see how they are the same. It's usually after you go to 4 astrologers who tell you different reasons for the pains you're going through, there's usually bound to be some things that stand out between all 4 of them. It's an annoying thing to have to do, but this is the only way to take a scientific tack towards the intuitive science that is astrology, with all the oxymoronic implications that an intuitive science implies. These people are intuiting the science of your astrology, and you have to be scientific about their intuitions by deduction, by seeing which ones line up, which one feels rightest, but also which seems intellectually the most right. These are the kind of things you got to deal with in the world of astrology, folks. And I hope that I've given you guys a little bit of sense of that with this video, so that as you are watching and as you go further in your attempts at self-realization, you yourselves can learn not to be taken advantage of by astrologers who understand and know that you have a hurting heart. Something very, very important for all of us to just be aware of in this world. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm Dustin Cormier. I hope that was a crazy story for you. Let me know in the comments what you think. And this is supposed to be shorter than it turned out to be, but I'm such a drama guy, like Leo rising, not Cancer rising. Hello. I like to tell people that, I'm a Tropical Vedic Astrologer, and every time I say that I'm a Leo rising, it's just all this dramaticness and the Scorpio depth of it. I like to sort of like wink, wink, look at it go. Green flag team, Tropical Vedic Astrology is what I'm trying to say. I digress. I love you folks. Thanks for watching. Keep your eyes peeled because there's always more stuff coming out in the world of how to rock astrology. Take care.